This video is going to be a comprehensive breakdown of all documentation types that can be created inside of Revit. We're going to be going step by step and showing everything that we can use to document our Revit projects. Let's go. Now quickly, before we jump into Revit, it's really important to announce that we have a huge Black Friday sale on balkanarchitect.com. If you would like to take advantage of all of our courses, now you can get all subscription options 50% off. Also, the beginner course is 50% off, as well as some other products. So to check out the full offer, click on the link in the cards above and also down in the description of this video. Be quick about it. It only lasts till Monday. So if you're serious about learning Revit, or if you want to level up your skills now or in 2025, this is absolutely the best time to make that purchase and lock in the discounted price. Now, without any further ado, let's jump straight into Revit. And here we are in Revit. This is the project that I'm going to be using. So this is our project 2 from the beginner to intermediate level course. And let's get started first by talking about the views. So how do we create all of these views? Now let's start with the floor plans. And for floor plans, we basically create them by creating levels. So if I open up one of the floor plans here, let's open up the first floor plan. You really need to open up either a elevation view or a section view, and then you can add additional levels, and then you can turn those into actual floor plans. So here I'm just going to bring these up a little bit, and then let's add an additional level 7 here on top. So I'm just going to go here to level. You can use the LL shortcut, and then let's place a level here on top. Hit the escape key a couple of times, and here I'm just going to rename it from level 8 to level 7, just like that. And something that you've noticed is we've created a new level here. However, under floor plans, we really have no such level. So we only have the existing ones, but we don't have the new one. And also here it's black, it's not blue, so it's not clickable. If I double click on this one, it's going to open up that floor plan. If I double click on this one, nothing happens. So the reason for that is whenever you create a new level, usually by default in the plan views option or panel, you're going to see that create plan view is going to be checked off. Now this basically tells Revit, if I check it on, I want to create plan views for this particular level, and then here you can say which ones. So you want ceiling plans, floor plans, structural plans, and so on. Now I'm just going to uncheck this and hit the escape key a couple of times. So you can do that immediately as you place the level, or alternatively you can place the level first and then you can decide to create views for this level, and you do that by going here to the view tab, and on the view tab we have plan views here on the create panel, and you basically select which type you want to do. So let's say I want to create a new floor plan, and it's going to recognize that only level 7 level doesn't have a floor plan, so I can just select that one. If we had more, we would have a larger list. Here it's only one, and then also here we have the option to do not duplicate existing views, so you can check that on, or if you check that off, it's going to show you all of them, and then you can create new floor plans for already existing levels. I don't want that because that would duplicate views, so I'm just going to go with level 7, so select it here and then go into OK, and basically here we have level 7. Obviously we see nothing because it's here above everything, but yeah, so that's how you create an additional level. And then of course if you want a structural plan, you can do that, and for the ceiling plan the same story goes. And here we can see under floor plans we now have level 7 here, but for ceiling plans, because we haven't created it, we don't have any new ceiling plans for our level 7. Now we're going to be sticking with our floor plan views just a little bit longer, but we're going to be exploring it a bit more. So let's say you've created a new level, you've created a new floor plan, according to that level, and now you're using it. So this is something that I would usually consider a working view. So it's the view that you use in order to create your 3D model or your actual building model. So this would just be a working view that you need to open up at some point to do something. Now, at a certain point, you stop working with working views and you start considering the documentation. So a working view might not exactly be the documentation view. You might want to have a different view with proper dimension lines, with proper tags, and so on and so forth. You might want to hide something that you want to show in your working view, so on and so forth. So what I like to do in these cases is I like to open up my floor plans, and as I did here, you can see for level 2 I have created the regular level 2 as a working view, and then we also have level 2 annotation and a level 2 room diagram. So room diagram, obviously room diagram, and annotation just has annotation that isn't available here in the level 2 working view. So this is something that I would use to make changes to the model, and then this is what I would use to actually create the final documentation views to be placed on sheets. So how do you do all of this? So let me show you here on the level 3. So if I decide that now I want to create a documentation view or an annotation view, so on, however you like to call it, you can right click on the view itself, and then you have the duplicate option, and we have multiple options. So number 1 is duplicate, which would basically just duplicate the view. Then we have duplicate with detailing, which is going to duplicate the view as well as all of the other detailing elements. Finally, we have duplicate as dependent, which is basically the same as duplicate with detailing. However, it's going to be dependent, meaning if you make any changes to the original floor plan, the dependent will accept those changes. So let me show you. I'm actually going to show all of them. So I'm just going to hit on duplicate, and let's rename this one into duplicate, just like this. Now let's go again to duplicate with detailing. So we have a new one, so I'm just going to rename that one with exactly that. And then finally, let's do another one, which is duplicate as a dependent, which will give us this. So basically below this level we have another node which kind of pops down, and we have the dependent. So this is what that looks like. So let me show you. This is the original view. This is what we have as the original view. The duplicate basically is the same as the original, just without the annotation. So here we have the room tags, and here we have no room tags. Then we have the duplicate with detailing, which is basically the same as the first one, and it also copied the annotation, so we have tags there. Now, when it comes to the dependent, it's also the same. However, if we make any changes here on this one, so let's say we go back to the original and add just a dimension line here going just like that. So we have added this dimension line here on the level 3. If I open up the duplicate, basically we have nothing. Duplicate with detailing, again, nothing. If I open up dependent, the dependent one gets that annotation. So use either one of these options for duplicating depending on what you want to do. So this is often used in situations where you just want to have another view that's exactly the same as this one. However, you perhaps want to crop it and only show one portion of this view. So let's say you just want to show the staircase, but you don't want to change any annotation or something like that, and then you would basically use this approach. So those are all of the options for creating multiple plan views in Revit. Okay, now let's move forward and talk about my favorite documentation type, which is 3D views. When it comes to 3D views, you have 3 options basically. So you have your kind of default 3D view or orthogonal view. So you basically click on this little icon, and it's going to create your default 3D view here under 3D views. And of course you can rename it at any point and so on and so forth. The second option is your camera. So you can find it here, or on the view tab we have create panel, and there you have the camera view. So you can open up a floor plan and then set a camera view like this. You click once, you extend, click again for the target, and this is basically what we get as that camera view. So this has a perspective view. This is perfect for rendering. Finally, the last option is a walkthrough. So we need to be in a floor plan view to access that. Now the walkthrough, I already have a video on that topic, so I'm just going to be linking that up in the cards above so you can check it out there. So walkthroughs are really fun, really interesting. You can actually create a video inside of Revit as a walkthrough, so definitely check that out. Moving forward, we have sections and elevations. So here we have the section option, also available on the quick access toolbar, and the elevation option is available here on the create panel. Now, I'm not going to go too much into those. They're pretty self-explanatory, so let's move forward to something a bit more interesting, which is callouts. So callouts can be used for any view type, any plan view type. So basically any floor plan, section, elevation, and so on. And it's basically for creating details. So if I think, okay, here we have a connection between multiple wall types, I want a detail of that, I can just go here and create a rectangle callout for that, and it's going to look like that. And basically this is a new view. If I double click, we have this detail, and now we can use Revit detailing tools to create an interesting detail. You can also see the scale has changed, and it's now a bit finer scale to show a bit more. Then we have legend views. So here for legend views, you basically can create legends. So I have one over here. So if I open it up, so here we have a wall legend. You can see it's basically blank space. So it's just like AutoCAD, and then you can sketch anything out. And you can also add these legend elements like this wall segment, and then you can add all of the material tags or something like that. So basically those are legend views. And then we also have drafting views, which are really interesting as well. So I can create a new one here. It usually offers a very fine scale like this. So basically a drafting view is also just like AutoCAD, but mainly used for detailing. So if you have an existing detail, you can just bring it here as a drafting view, or you can even import it as a drafting view, and you can make changes. So basically, yeah, you just create lines. That's how it works, just like AutoCAD, as I said. And then you can use, you can use the lines, regions, components, and so on. So basically that's how these drafting views work, and they're not all that BIM, but they are really useful. Now let's move over to the second type of documentation in Revit, which is schedules. So for schedules, they're going to appear down here in the project browser. Here I have a simple room schedule, for example, and for all schedules in Revit, if I just go back here, you can create new schedules on the View tab. On the Create panel, here we have schedules. Now you have multiple options. The first one is schedule quantities. So for schedule quantities, you really need to pick out a category. So if I want a door schedule, I would have to pick out doors. And you also have to name the schedule and give it a phase. And now we can pick out fields. So this is basically all of the parameters available for doors, and you can use all of those and enter them in your schedule. You can filter it, sort it, group it, format it, appearance, settings, and so on. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but basically for scheduling all of the door data for your projects, this is the schedule type you want to use. Now the second schedule type is the material takeoff schedule. I know it's third over here, but I think it's the second most important. So if I open that up again, you can select a category. So I can say, okay, I want for, let's say, for walls. And click OK. So this being a material takeoff, what you'll notice is that it's basically going to pull out all of the materials within the families in those categories. So for example, here we can have multiple wall families, but for each one they might have multiple materials. Well, in most cases they're going to have multiple materials. So here you can basically schedule the area of each material within a wall type, or you can do the cost of each material, or you can do the volume of each material. So these are really useful in situations where you really need to pull material data. So how much concrete is going to be used in the project, how many square meters of paint do we need for this project, and so on and so forth. So basically that's what you use these material takeoff schedules. Okay, moving forward, we have the graphical column schedule. So this is basically a schedule showing you all of the columns inside of your project according to the grids on which they're located. And then also we have all of the levels. So this is just another part of documentation. So if you need a graphical column schedule for your project documentation, you can simply create it just like this. Then we have a sheet list. So basically this is a schedule that's only for sheets. So all of the sheets that you have in the project, it's just going to create a schedule for those sheets. So essentially it's like creating a schedule, but the sheet category is already kind of picked out. And then you can add parameters like, okay, so which sheet collection does it belong to? What's the sheet name, the sheet number, who designed it, who drew it, who checked it, and so on and so forth. So that's basically just another schedule type, but specific to sheets. Moving forward, we have a note block schedule. So a note block schedule is basically, it allows you to pick out a note family. So you can have a note family which can just give you, let's say, so here if I open up, I don't know, let's say this view. Okay, so I can place a note family here aimed towards this column, and it can only display a number, let's say number 1. And then I can create this note block schedule that's going to give me all of my numbers from the notes and what I actually want it typed out for that note. So instead of having everything written on the floor plan itself, I can have a schedule with all of that data, which is useful. And then finally we have a view list. So just like a sheet list, this is a list of all of the views. So again, just a regular schedule, but only for the view category inside of Revit. And finally, once we have all of our data or all of our documentation created, now we can display it on a sheet. So sheets are located down here in the project browser. You right click to create a new sheet. You pick out the title block that you want to use. Of course, you can load new ones in. These are the ones that I already have loaded in, so I'm just going to say OK. And now here I can start placing views. So basically any view that I want to place, I can just drag it over. I can say, okay, I want this one. Let's say we want our detailing view that we have, and so on. Of course, we can place schedules, we can place note block schedules, we can place drafting views, we can place legend views, and basically all of the documentation that we have covered so far, it can be placed on a sheet and then it goes to printing from there. And that's going to conclude this tutorial. I hope you've learned something new and have a bit of a better understanding of what is all of the documentation that can be created within Autodesk Revit. Once again, just to mention, the Black Friday sale is active right now, so make sure to be quick about it because it only lasts until Monday, so make sure to use it. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to check out my website, balkanarchitect.com, for more Revit courses. There I have over 120 hours of content, and I'm adding more each week. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and also I've added a video over there that might interest you as well.